Hello and welcome to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Friday, December 8th. We are here. We're breaking it down. Hope you guys have had a great week. We've had a little bit of a break with NBA shows, but we should be back on from now on now that the in-season tournament is pretty much over. Before we get into it, as always, please comment, like, and subscribe to the video. Helps us a ton. Just feed that good old algo to help us continue to give out content for free. Now, let's get in. Let's get into the old slate here. So, we do have a 13-game slate, which in my eyes is way too much, but it does give a lot to talk through and talk about. There are several pretty high-scoring games. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games of 230 plus, and one of them is 240, couple 235. So interesting slate to kind of break down and go over, and we will do that right now. So, starting with FanDuel, the high-owned guys, we got Dejounte Murray, Cole Anthony, and Dante Exum. Murray, look, there's no Trae Young. He's super high-owned for a reason. He is also in one of the better game environments. The real issue here is it's in Philadelphia, and can they keep the game close enough for long enough for both the Hawks and 76ers guys to be able to really score enough fantasy points to be optimal on such a big slate. Now, this is another slate where I think it's a little sharp to do some mini correlations and hope some of these higher scoring totaled games stay a little bit closer. And if that's the case, then those mini correlations really, really kind of work out in these situations. So, I think Murray makes a lot of sense. Just understand, there is blowout potential there, but I just don't like to forecast for blowout, so I will be playing him. Cole Anthony at 7,100. Look, I know Jalen Suggs is out, and he likely is probably getting around 30-ish, 30-plus minutes because Anthony Black is terrible, and they don't really have anybody else. Gary Harris will step in and play some more minutes, but I just think 7,100 is a lot, and I think it's getting close to kind of like his ceiling. I know he did have this 56 game. He's had a couple 40s, so he can get it done for you here at this price, but I think it's doubtful. However, it is a good matchup. I just don't like betting on it when everybody is. Dante Exum stepped in with Grant Williams out, and I would expect him to go, back to playing him. He is a guy that has been a very good fantasy producer per minute basis for his career, so I don't mind taking some swings on a value shot in a decent matchup versus Portland. He is young. Dallas does need to kind of see what they have in him, so even in a blowout, maybe he plays, a little bit more. So I don't mind going there. I mean, versus Utah was a total blowout, and he still got 26 minutes. So I think he's interesting for sure, and hard to really know how many minutes he's going to get. Anthony Simons, he is a higher owned piece, but I think he is at least interesting. He came out absolutely launching. He had 27 field goal attempts, 12 shots from 3. The guy can shoot. If he gets on fire, he's likely the reason that the Trailblazers either stay close in this game or win if they do. The guy can fill up the basket. He can shoot pretty well. I think he's pretty interesting. And right now I'm going to get a lot. I mean, he played a ton of minutes his first game back, 37 minutes. So I think he's an interesting pick. I would like him to be a little lower owned, but I am still pretty interested. Malcolm Brogdon is another piece here. He did play last game, but didn't play much. and he is questionable for this game. We're not really sure what's going to happen here. This is a guy that's been injured a lot, so I would expect the Trailblazers to edge on the side of caution, and if he is, truly questionable, I would say he likely sits out or doesn't really play. However, if he plays, dude's 1.16 fantasy per minutes, player over his last 20 starts, 7,300. There's absolutely the upside in a game that is likely to score. And, Dallas has some real high scoring games. So I don't mind going to Brogdon. Now, what I will say is that if Brogdon's out, Sharp, Simmons both get a little bump up and would have more of those. Dennis Schroeder, I just can't quit him. He's in a very good matchup, and at 6,100, I love his price. I mean, he is routinely in the 30s, and he can get up to the 40s with him, and in a good matchup, I think it's decent. He's decently priced, and I have no worries whatsoever going to Schroeder today. And I love that he's a little bit lower owned. And on the other side of that, Terry Rozier, Scary Terry, without LaMelo Ball, he is, actually a force to kind of be reckoned with. 1.18 fantasy per minute over the last 5 starts, all of which are without Ball. And if you can see, he's been shooting the ball well. He's been playing well. High of 64, mid 40s, routinely so far. And even to start the year, he was right around that 40 mark. And so now without Ball, I think he's very interesting in this game, in which he should play a full allotment of minutes, which, the Hornets get blown out a lot. So that's not always the case. And lastly, I gotta bring up my guy, Tyrese Maxey. I know I've been in on him a lot on these shows lately. But look, this first game of the day, 235.5 total. I think it's a very interesting one. And in a very high-paced game, it's really where Maxey can excel. I definitely worry that his price is a little too high. This is why his ownership isn't really going there, but in a high-paced game, I do expect him to be a little bit more of a factor. So I think that is part of it. Now, very well could be Embiid being the reason that the 76ers win this, and I mean, it usually is. But I do see this game as potentially a decent one for Maxey. The one bummer is that DeJounte Murray is going to be point guard now and probably going to be on him all day, and Murray is actually a pretty good defender. So that is, a bit of a bummer for Maxey, but I do think he's an interesting kind of higher mid-range kind of pay up option if you want to go with more of a mid-range lineup or balanced lineup today. All right, now DraftKings, high ownership, Murray, Anthony, Cole, same as DK, so we have covered all of those. And getting over to the matchup tab, we got Keaton George, Kobe White, Steph Curry, and Garland as the guys with Maxey up there. So that is interesting. However, do note that it's not Trae Young at point guard today. It's going to be DeJounte Murray, and that could change this matchup for him a little bit here. George, yeah, he's fine. He's getting some extra usage with them being hurt, so I don't mind going there. I just think his price is just too high now, and that's why I don't really love it. Kobe White does absolutely carry some interest. He's another one that his price is just a bit too high for me, and that's why I'm not really getting there. All right, now shooting guard. So we got DeJounte Murray, Gary Harris, and Cole Anthony. Harris very well could start in this situation with Jalen Suggs being out. He could start at shooting guard with Anthony Black being point guard for some dumb reason. They keep going with him, but Gary Harris can have some decent games. He can put up these 30s. They're just kind of few and far between. His most likely outcome is, 20, 24, something like that, which won't kill your lineup. You're just not going to win a GPP with it. So I don't mind going to Harris, and I'm probably going to have a little bit in hope of one of these more ceiling-like games. It's just not likely. He did play 31 minutes last game, which is a good sign, but he's just kind of a meh play for me. Bogdan. We got to bring up Bogey here. I think Bogey's in a really good spot, and I'm absolutely going to be getting some of him. Murray, and a lot of the Hawks look good. I think Murray and Bogdan are getting the most ownership from the Hawks, but I do have some other spots on that team that we're going to get into that I'm interested in, which aren't getting quite as much ownership. Simmons, we talked about. Eric Gordon, and Simons. Eric Gordon, I think, is an interesting play. He is getting some ownership, but with no KD, no Grayson Allen, he's going to play a ton of minutes. He's going to probably get back up to the 35 minutes like he was last game. And in a very high-scoring game, I think he's going to be relied on a little bit to score the ball because it is Booker and Nurkic carrying the team, and he is likely the third best scorer or player on the team tonight. So I don't mind going to some Gordon. D-Book. I'll have a lot of D-Book. I think without KD, no Beal, he's in a very good spot versus the Kings. Real high-scoring game. And frankly, not getting the ownership he should in these spots where he is getting, just a ton of usage and could start at point guard. His possibility of scoring fantasy points is just way too high for the amount of ownership that he's getting. So I really like D-Book in this spot. We have seen before that he has a real big ceiling when he's kind of carrying the load, and mid-50s to 60s is totally in play. And at lower ownership, I am intrigued. And we've talked about everybody else for shooting guards already, so get over to FanDuel. We got Murray, Anthony, Bogdan. We talked about all of them. Should be known that we talked about the Bogdanovich for the Hawks, not the Pistons. So, getting over to matchup tool. Donovan Mitchell, Jaden Ivey, Eric Gordon. So Gordon is popping up here. Not getting a ton of ownership in a good matchup. Not a bad spot with more usage going to him. Also, one of the later games, so nice to, still have some guys going later in the evening. And Donovan Mitchell, I don't hate it. He's only 9K now, has a real big ceiling, isn't in the fastest paced game with only a 220 total, but he can do it. If Evan Mobley is out, I do like this play a little bit more as more usage opens up, and he is definitely a safer play than Maxey is, which, I talked about liking already. He is more likely to get into 50 than Maxey is. Maxey's just low owned, and I guess Mitchell's low owned too, so he is an interesting one and maybe somebody I should be considering a little bit more in my lineups. Cam Thomas is in a good spot. I don't mind him. We were all over him when he played Atlanta and put up an absolute dud, but simply put, he's a decent fantasy producer when he is on and when he is making buckets, and he definitely wasn't doing that versus Atlanta. This is another high-paced, high-scoring game, though, and he could be that versus a Washington team that is allergic to defense. All right, let's get over to small forward. So our highest owned guys, Bogdan, Jimmy Butler, Paulo Banchero. I don't mind Paulo in this spot. I just don't love it. However, it is versus the Pistons, who literally can't stop anybody. They can't win a game. and Paulo should be able to do whatever he wants. The one thing, they kind of crushed Detroit last year, and he wasn't really doing too much in that matchup versus him. I think he's fine. Just don't love it. Jimmy Butler, look, there's no Bam, so he is obviously in consideration here. Without Bam, he should be good for 40-plus fantasy points, and at 8.7, you really want him to get the 50s, and he can do it. It's just not as likely as you think it is, just because he doesn't really care about the regular season too much. They just want to win enough games to be in it and get into the playoffs, and he kind of coasts a lot of games. Now, is this a game that he's going to coast? He's had rest. They haven't played that much. So maybe this is one that he's into, since he's really only played 2 games since November 30th. Other spots I'm interested in. All right, DeAndre Hunter. I think he's going a little overlooked today. Without Trey, he's going to be asked to shoot the ball a little bit more. He may play a couple more minutes. You know, he's had some games where he plays 35, 40 minutes. And if the Hawks are able to stay in this game and he plays those extra minutes, at 5,400, he does have a pretty nice ceiling. He can get to mid-30s. He can get into the 40s. I think he's an interesting play. As well as Caleb Martin. His salary went up, a decent amount after that great game he had versus Toronto. Now, this matchup is a little bit more difficult for him, but without Bam, without Haywood, Highsmith, I think he's going to play a lot of minutes. He played 31 last game, and if he plays 34, 35, at 5,800 he could definitely pay off that salary and not getting much ownership. Sadiq Bey is another one I like a lot. 5,800. This guy can shoot the ball very, very well. If those threes start falling and he's playing big time minutes like he has been lately with more usage because Young is out there, I would not be that surprised to see him in the mid-30s or 40s fantasy point wise. And at 5,800, I'm very interested, and going low owned. So you could go Hunter, Bey. You're not breaking the bank, getting more usage because of Trae Young. And with that, you're also fading some ownership. I think that's an interesting way to go. Or just take one of them. Or one of them with Bogdan. Lastly, we got Kyle Kuzma. The guy's just playing way too good at basketball right now. Super high game total. I just wish Jordan Poole was on this team. But Kuzma at 8K when, he had several games in the mid-50s or low 60s last week, I think is super interesting, and I don't mind going back to him, especially at low ownership. And then Brandon Miller. Still no ball. Mark Williams is questionable, but I think 5,600 is a fair price for one. It's a rookie, so he's still trying to figure out the league, but he's been right around that 30 mark game in and game out. I think there is a little bit more of a ceiling there. I think he is able to get into 40s. We just haven't really seen it yet. He's had one game where he got 39 and he shot well. 7 of 16, had 9 rebounds, only 1 block. He gets a couple blocks, couple steals, and shoots the ball well, and he's there. I mean, last game, 29 points, 14 shots, only 4 fell. 3 of them were threes, but he had a block and a steal, still put up 30. I think he is going to have a game where all of those come together soon, and so I think he is still interesting at low ownership. Don't go overboard. So far, he has just been, consistent. But I do think there's more ceiling there than the field does. And Draftkings, high ownership, Bogdan, Dante, and Caleb Martin, all of which we talked about. Keita Bates Diop, I think, is at least of interest. But you're really going to need that Phoenix Suns starting lineup, because you're only really interested if he is starting. If he's not starting, he's meh. Matchup tool, we got Dort Osman, Denny Avadia, and Tobias Harris. I don't mind Tobias. He lives in that 30-point range. I just think his price is a bit high right now. Okogie, we got to talk about him. He is another one I am interested in due to more usage opening up, but he is another guy like Bates Diop where I only want him if he's starting. And if his ownership gets insane because he's starting, I might fade him a little bit. I don't know if he really has a true ceiling, but at 4,900, I think he can get into the 30s, and that's enough for me from a value piece. All right, now power forward, we got Bates Diop, Butler, Banchero, talked about all of them. The liked pieces I've also talked about. So getting over to DraftKings, high ownership, we got Bay, Banchero, and Pascal Siakam. Siakam I like a lot tonight. I do like it at 8,100. They're in a good matchup versus Charlotte, and he can absolutely crush that salary. He is a guy, too, that has that mid-50 upside at, 8,100. I think taking some swings on him is pretty interesting, especially when he's done really well versus the Hornets in the past. Now getting over to matchups, Batum, Keegan Murray, and Banchero. Banchero's getting a lot of ownership. Makes sense. He's high on the matchup tool. Looks good there. Siakam high on the matchup tool. Keegan Murray, we have not talked about, but that is a fairly interesting game. 235.5 total. Kings are 2.5 point favorites. Murray is likely going to get a decent amount of minutes. Has a ceiling, just doesn't show it much and has a real low floor. So I think he's an interesting piece. I just, it's hard to count on him. He is, a GPP piece. He will be low owned, has the upside you need, just rarely hits that upside. So there's that. Now on to center. So we got Capella, we got Victor Wembanyama, and Jarrett Allen being the higher owned guys. Allen is fine. His price is coming down a little bit. I don't mind him. If Mobley is out, I like Allen much more. I think the minutes will be a little bit more secure, and possibility of more upside is there. Wemby, I think, is fine. I don't mind him. My whole thing with Wemby is he has, at any game, he can go for 50 or 60. So those games that he's low owned, I love taking some swings on him. The games he's high owned, I don't mind taking him. I don't think he's ever a guy at this point that we can fade him when he's still 9K. Once he gets up into 10K, which he's going to be there, then there'll be games where I am kind of fading him just because he only plays 31, 33 minutes a game. I am definitely intrigued, though, versus the Bulls. Bulls just aren't that good, and Wemby can score. Joel Embiid, I am extremely intrigued by in this matchup. High-scoring game. It's going to be him or Maxey that goes off. More likely Embiid than Maxey, but you're paying 12.5K for that upside. So that's simply why I'm getting to more Maxey. I am trying to do a little bit more of some small, game correlation plays with that game, hoping it just stays a little closer. Other play I like, I got to go back to Orlando Robinson. His price went way up, but, the dude just put up 46. He played 33 minutes. I think his minutes are fairly secure with Bam out right now, and he's shown some nice upside. Is he going to have 3 steals and a block again? Probably not, but he showed other games, 28 minutes, putting up 35, 26 minutes, putting up 30, 29 minutes, putting up 26 versus Indy. I don't mind taking some swings on him in this spot. I think I think he warrants it. His last game warrants it. At low ownership, I'm intrigued. Now, there's a few center spots that have some real value that could open up. So understand these center spots are very fragile right now as far as what you want to do with them. Mark Williams is questionable. He did miss that last game, so we're not too sure there. Gafford is questionable with the Wizards, so there's, could be some value there that opens up. Reith played 22 minutes last game. He had 5 fouls, so he had some foul trouble. He likely would have been playing more like 24, 26, and he's pretty intriguing and still only 4,400. So I don't mind going that way either. All in all, pretty interesting slate. And let's check out the DraftKings ownership. We got Clint Capella, Pascal Siakam, and Kenrick Williams. Capella's fine. I don't mind going to Capella. He had 30 minutes and 29 minutes the last 2 games. My issue is that he just had the stretch of him barely playing. So I just don't really totally know what Atlanta is doing with his minutes. At higher ownership, I don't like betting on that quite as much. But he is definitely of interest. And matchup-wise, Looney, Jokic. I like Jokic a lot tonight. I think there's some major upside. And I actually would play him over Embiid. The only reason I'm not getting to him as much of him right now is that I've been doing the mini correlations with the Hawks in that first run of lineups that I did. That may change throughout the day with ownership, but I absolutely, or with new injuries and whatnot coming out. But I absolutely do like Embiid quite a bit tonight, and being $500 less than Embiid is super intriguing. Vucevic, I don't mind getting to whatsoever. Spurs have just been kind of meh versus center, and there's no Levine, so he's probably locked into at least 34 minutes. We've seen when he gets that, he puts up big points. 8,300 could definitely get into the 50s. Sengun has had some real good games versus Jokic. The one thing I would say is now that his salary is up to 5 or 9.1K, he's not quite as interesting. All right, guys, that'll do it for us today. You guys have a good one. Good luck tonight. Good luck this weekend, and we will be back next week. Let's win some money. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye, guys.